Hi, Alan Stratton from As Wood Turns. The box elder wood for this bowl came from a club wood exchange. At least that was an exchange long before the pandemic made us socially isolated. This was green wood, and it actually takes a fairly long time from a green state to a dry state. But imagine with me for a minute as if you had the same block of wood wet and still wet. But you wanted this one to dry before you turned it, and this one you wanted to rough turn and then let dry. Well, the rule of thumb is a year per inch of thickness. So 1, 2, say 3 plus a year. So 4 years for this block of wet poplar or wet box elder to dry to the state of being able to turn it into a finished bowl. This one over here that started off wet, well, you turn it. It's softer, easier to cut, but you leave it a bit thick, and then let it dry for about, in this case, about 8 months. Then finish turning it. So 4 years or about 10 months. You choose. That, and there's also you say there's a risk of it cracking after you turn it wet? Yes, there is. Is there a risk of this block cracking while it dries? A very good chance it will crack while it's drying over those 4 years. So let's turn this piece of box elder wet into a nice round bowl. Look at that figure. By the way, this is walnut oil and then buffed. So it doesn't have a deep gloss finish, but it is shiny, kind of, which seemed appropriate to highlight the figure for this bowl. Let's turn it. This wet box elder block came from a club wood exchange. Someone had taken the time to saw it round. That is something that I actually rarely do. The wood is pressed against a wood faceplate with live center pressure. No tape, no screw, just pressure. Since it is already round, I only need to true it to the axis with my large bowl gouge. Then start forming the bowl's profile. I need to cut a tenon for a secure mount. I've marked it with dividers with the wood spinning, a practice I don't do or recommend anymore for any skill level. The wet wood cuts away in big streamers. Always a woodturner's dream. Now I can reverse mount the bowl with a secure chuck mount on that tenon. As always, there is some shift in the turning axis, but it does not take very much to clean up the edge with shear cuts. Still with my large bowl gouge. Then on to clean up the face. By the way, I still have the live center in place for a bit of security. The wood is wet and soft, and after all, it could easily tear out of the chuck. Then start hollowing, still with the bowl gouge. I take a lot of hogging cuts to remove a lot of wood from the center. The one thing to be careful of is when the cut bumps against the previous cut. If not careful, a big catch will result. In this case, I was sufficiently careful. Then remove the live center to continue hollowing, this time with cuts from the outside in, taking a lot less wood but with much better control. I plan to leave the walls between 3/4 to 1 inch thick to accommodate any distortion while drying. I'm finished with tool work for now. Now to coat the bowl with Tree Saver, a green wood sealer, and put it away to dry slowly. Every so often I weigh the bowl and record its current weight. About a 25% loss. That is on the low side. It must not have been totally fresh when I started. This piece has dried for about 8 months. I expected much more distortion than I now see. It is about 1/8 of an inch smaller across than the length. While I cannot easily measure, it looks like about the same from the height. With the lighter dry bowl now pressed against a closed chuck, again with live center pressure, the only task now is to recut the original tenon that has distorted in the drying process. My skew is my favorite tenon tool. Next, start refining the exterior. I am using my large bowl gouge in a shear cutting mode. Handle low, edge nearly vertical. Since the wood has not distorted a lot, I'm mainly removing the sealer, then working for a smooth curve. I do need a short trip to the top of the lip to know how much I can leave as an exterior lip. I like the feel this kind of lip gives a bowl. Now for the interior with my bowl gouge. I am using a standard cut from outside to inside. The first cut took out the variation from the warping. The rest will make the wall thinner to about 3/8 inch. Thinness really does not matter. Instead, it is the look and feel and heft of the bowl. For the bottom center, my heavy bowl scraper finished off the job, followed by sanding up through the grits. The bowl is now mounted in the large coal jaws to work the foot. But first I need to measure how much wood to remove. This may drive how the foot is formed if the wood is scanty. But no, I have plenty of thickness to remove. I am finishing with my skew to shape the outline and to cut a couple of small grooves. Now for a bath in walnut oil. I'll let it dry for a couple of days while I decide whether to buff it to a medium shine. This is another example of wood turning a pretty bowl and having to wait months for it to dry. Even with the wait time, turning green wood is a pleasure. If given the choice of the same wood, same size, I will turn it green. It is softer and a lot less dust. Would you look at that green? Please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe on my website, tell your friends, and send me your comments and questions. Every week I make a new wood turning video and add to the over 400 videos to choose from on my website. But please wear your full face shield anytime the lathe is running. Until next week's video, this is Alan Stratton from As Wood Turns.